Okay, so welcome back, guys. I have a student's piece here that's coming along really nice. And what I thought I'd do in today's demo is just go through this piece and talk about a couple little things that I would add in here to sort of take it to that next step. So when I look at the piece here, let's talk about pros and the cons, okay? The good things that are happening right now, there's good atmospheric perspective happening in there. There's some really fantastic shapes. So I can look at this piece and I can identify just by looking at it, I know exactly what time period I'm at, or excuse me, not time period, but I know the what I meant to say is the overall location setting. I know I'm somewhere in like the Mojave or the desert. I know I'm not in the Bay Area. I know I'm not in the middle of a giant city, right? I can look, I could say maybe I'm in, Arizona, maybe old parts of New Mexico, perhaps even, something similar to like Bryce Canyon in Utah. I have a good idea. Okay, so from here, though, we need to talk about adding a couple little details and some little elements that we can place in there to sort of raise this piece up to a finished level. So one thing that I noticed, Eddie, not to pick on you, but see this right here? There's still a white line around that. A little bit of a white line from however you got that selection in there. So I'd go in there and get rid of some of that white line. Digitally, it's a little harder to notice, but I noticed it over here on the canvas too. On the cactus. And what'll happen is when you go to print, that will get, it'll really show up on the print very well, okay? So right now, it's not as noticeable, but I did see it's there. Okay, so one of the things we want to talk about here, how I would sort of finish this piece off, is a couple things. One, I want to add in a height or scale. And I want to have, right now there's not really a center of focus. My eye is going down here because I have the directional lines of the ground plane going there. I also have some lines that are moving me in this direction from the hills, the mountainsides. I have these angled lines that are taking place in here. I have numerous what I call directional or supportive lines in the composition that are bringing me down here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to get in there and have some form of scale. After I get the scale in there, the next thing I want to do is wherever that focus is, I want to try to get some cool little gradients in there or little areas of detail around that character to create some form of contrast, okay? And then something that will help me in that development, the third thing, is when I'm looking at a lot of these structures right now, I really don't have a light side or a dark side that's taking place. And so I could use that to my benefit by imagining if the light is coming from the left, okay, from the left-hand side, coming down here towards the right, and I could get in here and maybe add a little bit to the structures, create some shadows, some light, and then if I add those shadows and light to these different facades, okay, to these earth-made structures here, and then around the character, boom, that'll be my center of interest, okay? So I already went in and I just really quickly, I just created like a little guy on a horse, let's say, okay, or it could be a donkey. Okay, but I just did it super fast and I just put it in there. That way when I minimize, you can see right now, just by having that character in there, it gives my eye something to look at because my eye comes down here and I see that silhouette shape that's in there and I can see how well it's working, and that's really, really imperative for me. Okay, so when I look at that character, that's sort of working. The one thing I did notice when I look at this piece, Eddie, something to think about here is you see that little weed that you have in the back. I like it, but it's still solid black. Okay, so you got to remember, thinking about some of the value changes here, what if you lighten that up a little bit? Like I noticed when I click this guy, he's jumped up a little bit more, and I could still lighten up my character a lot more because he's way in the back there, right? So I would maybe lighten up. That's something you got to think about. That's where blacks can flatten out. That's pure black. That's closer to the foreground. That's more in the midground. That's pure black. This is way in the foreground. That's pure black. And then this bush, which is way in the backdrop there, that's pure black. So that's a couple little adjustments that I would probably make in there. So let me see if I can go through. Let me find that layer real quick and see where I am. So that's going to be in the midground here. And it's not back there. Do you know where that layer is by chance?
With the
Plants. So that's... Oh, in the foreground? Okay, so there it is. I have a cactus layer. No, that's front cactus. Maybe this is it. Let's just see right here. No, it's not in the foreground. Let me see here. Oh, there it is. That's it right there. So what I'm going to do is come in here with my wand, see if I can't select that real quick. Okay, there it goes. And then I'm going to hit Control H so I can't see the ants. Let's go to levels. I'm going to see if I could just dull that down a little bit more. I just don't want it so dark, you know. Having it just a little change like that, that's pretty cool. Okay. And then that way, even now the guy pops out a little bit more and the bush is a little bit more laid back, let's say. Okay, so first thing, let's talk about, I might get in here and let me see if I want to figure out how I can do this on a fill version. What I thought about doing is coming in here and basically, here I'm going to paint this real quick on another layer up above here and show you what I'm thinking about doing. So basically what I want to do is I want to create a center of interest around that character. So this is sort of, I'm going to draw and just show you guys what I'm sort of imagining is, what if I came in here and 100% deselect. What if I came in here and if I make this like a dark side, okay? And if I make this a light side right here, and then what if I even had part of the structure go over or thin down over the character like this? What I could do is if I bring this out a little bit more in the middle right here, Eddie, and have this come down and make it look like the structure goes here, okay, I could have a shadow that casts going across like this, and then I could have white right in here next to this guy, and then that way I can have this dark side all shadow right here. Do you see that? So if I have dark, and then I have this guy sort of highlighted, and then I come in here, and if, again, light's coming from left to right, so if I come down here and put a little bit more light in here, and a little bit more light on there, it's going to really start to create a lot of contrast in that center area right there. And that's what I sort of want to work towards. That'll add a lot to my piece. Okay, so let me see if I can come in here and just sort of, I'm going to paint this up on another layer above here. Let me just select this. Okay. See if I can get this to work. Okay. Okay, give me a second here, guys. Let's grab that value. Let's go a little bit darker. The other thing, too, is, which I'll get to in just a second, but it's the details. If I get lots of little new details around here, that right now there's no, like, little shadow details. There's no texture details or anything. If I start to develop that around this area here, that's definitely going to grab the eye, too. Okay, hold on a minute. I just swabbed this. I want that value just a little bit darker like that. There we go. Okay, so if you look at what I've done now, see that little structure I put there? And just see how it's around the character, okay? And then now, so now I have that character in here, which I could still address, but look at the difference, okay? So I just put that little structure around there. This sort of mimics the environment, but now I put a couple different shadows on there. I still have a little bit of a light side. It's turning form a little bit. I have what looks like there could be a shadow indication, okay? Because I have a little bit of a shadow going across here, but I still need to adjust some of what's happening here. One of the problems that I notice now is that look at the difference. This foreground color that you have here, Eddie, is it transfers all the way back. It's the same value as it is in the foreground to the back there. So by me lightening that up, because it should be getting lighter like that, it really makes that character pop a little bit more. And now it starts to encapsulate a little bit. So now if I come in here like this, and if I imagine that maybe there's light sort of streaming across parts of this, maybe even coming up over this hillside like this, this will do a lot to sort of help me get a little gradient of light coming in there. And that, again, that's what I was saying about the gradients. The gradients are areas where the eye wants to focus and look at. Okay, so here, I'm going to just go here. I have G already selected. Let me just see if I can, I'm going to put this on another layer because I want to get it to blend in. So I don't sit here. I didn't want to go to pure white. Let's just try something about there to about there. And here I want to do it on a separate layer so that way I can blend it in. There we go. Still want it to be a little bit darker. It's not quite dark enough. There we go. And this is a great thing about using gradients and other layers is it's here, and now I can sort of drop it down and see how I could fade that in a little bit. Actually, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I don't like that as much. Let me come back to that one because I just had another idea looking at this. What if I come in here? So if I have light coming left or right, let me get some of these little highlights to pop on in some of this area right in here. So if light's coming down here, I'm actually going to throw down a really nice bright highlight like right underneath this guy. And that'll do a lot, just that little bit right there. Okay. There we go. Yeah, just that little bit of brightness there. And then let me come in here, and I want to start, this is where I was going to select some like rock facade and get some of this to like pop out a little bit. Okay. And look at what that does right there. Let me watch if I take my brush and go to like 20%. Watch the stroke right here. See, I'm just transitioning that. See what that does to have like the light coming across and sort of go up the side of that, and then the characters right there. Okay, that really does a lot to help me there. And so that was the answer to your question, David. Can you use your brush? See how I'm using it here? Yeah. If I hit Control H, I have a selection, but I'm just lightly sort of creating a gradient going from dark. My brush is on like 2, and see I'm just brushing in that changeover, and I could even put a little bit of a specular highlight in there, and so I just created a really nice simple flow by using my brush, by dropping it down to like 20%, having a selection in there. Okay, but right now my eye's really starting to stay focused in here, and I think that's the one thing that started not to happen in here. And I had this area selected here, select all V, and if I hit the move tool and I hit Control H, I wanted a light to feel like it was hitting here and sort of branching over. So now I could come back in, see if I can, let me try that again. There it goes. And brush 2030. Oops, sorry. And then my computer's acting a little slow here. Select all V, the move tool, there it is. Let's hide that. Go back to brush. Why is it not painting on that layer? It's driving me nuts. It's on brush. I don't know if this is a computer thing. There it goes. Should be at full opacity right now. Why is it not? Sorry guys, I'm having a little bit of a technical issue here. I was trying to get a little bit of light casting in here. There it goes. You know, that's why. It's because I have the layers set at 100%. I mean, at 50% opacity. I wasn't paying attention to where I had that. There, let me dull some of that down. Just trying to get a little bit of a transition there. Now, that's pretty cool. Now what I'm going to do is come back here. Let me just merge that in together. And now where that light's hitting right in here, I might put a little bit of that, some of that highlight up in here. So I might come along and select some little rock faces here. Like this. Sorry. Let me subtract that little ends there. Like that, okay. And now I'm going to get in here and I'm just going to take that brush again and just sort of come along, hide that, take my brush and just sort of hit, see that little stroke right there? That does a lot to mimic light, to look like light's wrapping over the form. And then look, I'll just lightly come over here, put my brush at 20, then I'll just sort of go up right there. Do you see that? And it puts a cool little indication there. If I do it across here, and then I just tap it in one little area, so now I'm like creating my own little gradient there. Okay, so now when I look at my piece, it's obvious where my eye goes. It's the biggest area of contrast, and I created that contrast by not only throwing the character in there, but then by putting these little highlights on here, you know, and the more I continue to come up and push some of these little selections, you know, boom, that becomes a really interesting spot right there all of a sudden. And I could keep working from that. I mean, I could take what I just put in there. I have nothing back here. If I really want to get that guy to pop, put the opposite value behind him. And I know I always get in this battle of students who are like, I couldn't figure it out. What do you mean put the opposite value behind him? Just do it. You got to get in here. Here, let me create another layer. Let me drop this layer under my character right here. And so where I had that sort of highlight, imagine this right here. Okay, so I'm going to take that, let me brush that with this value here, 100%. Boom, that's up right there. Then I'm going to come back in here, and then, hold on a minute, I'm going to subtract. Oops. I'm going to take my lasso tool, okay. Sorry, hold on. The Camtasia is acting up because I'm at 20 minutes, and it's every time I hit a button, it's not quite working. See, it's going to new layer when I'm telling it to go to lasso tool, and I don't know why. Alright, damn it. Sorry guys, I'm getting frustrated here. Lasso, and then allow me to, there we go. So what I'm going to do here, now I'm going to select out and keep the highlight areas that I want to pop this guy a little bit more. So I'm going to select out some little spots in here like that, hit Control H to hide it, take my brush, go back to that white value and watch. Watch how instantly this guy pops out. If I come in here and I just go across like that, you see that? And I go to 20 and just hit across there a little bit, put a little bit more of a value going there. I have the selection already underneath. You see that? Now I just created a little bit of a light coming down, hitting those front facades of those mountains, and then boom, that character really pops in there all of a sudden. So now I just hit Control D. Now I'm getting to this area where I can start coming in here and really facilitating and placing a lot of details to get the areas to pop. Look at these long structures. It's funny, I was out in the desert this weekend in Arizona. What the long structures that are really tall like that, they tend to have moisture and dew that sets on them, and when it rains, and all the water drops down. So because of that, they tend to have little grooves and highlights on, or I should say the form of the object is changing with long grooves from the way the water's dropping, right? So I could address some of that in here now if I come over on the side here, and I don't want to get too detailed because I want to pull away from my center of interest, but I could come over here and just put like a long line like this going down the facade here, just like that. And now I could come in here, let's hit Control H. I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to get that sort of white there, I'm going to go down to about 20, just sort of come across. You see that, what that does? That's like my reflective light now, coming across that valley. My key light's hitting right here on part of my character, and I could come in, look, I can just hit one little area here, like a little bit of a highlight, maybe hit a little bit of the cap top right there, and you see what that did? Now it's really starting to change form and adding a little bit more detail onto my piece very quickly. Okay, so if I come back over here, let's take everything I did, let's commit to it and turn it off, and let me minimize here for a minute and look at the difference. Okay, there. So nothing wrong with that. It's just that I could have just adding a little bit more in there, having a character. My eye knows exactly where to go for a couple reasons. Number one, silhouette, because we see the character. Number two, we've established light areas. And then number three, we have a large area of contrast. Okay, and we're getting little bits of detail. So now the more detail I put up around here and I make more exciting in this piece, the more my eye is going to want to go over here. So here, let me show you another little bit of detail that I could do. So maybe I have what I call, let me finish this back side of this mountain. This little thing here. I want to get that a little bit, take like that little area there. Let me get like the back side of this, and then just a little bit in here. Okay, I'm going to hit Control H, and I want to come with a darker value in there, drop down to about 20, and just lightly sort of get those areas to hold together a little bit more with that darker value. Just little bits, just barely touching it in here to see what that does. Just that little bit of gradient in there keeps the eye really focused right in there. Okay, so now after that, look, I have this whole plane back here, and there's nothing really developed in that plane. So here I'm going to paint on top. I want to develop some of this in here. That looks like just a flat sort of hillside going in here. And so first I thought, well, what if I can come in here and carve some shapes out here that might represent, that might enhance the composition and represent a little bit more of what's taking place. So that's what I did. So now I'm going to hit brush, grab that value, and I'm going to see if I can paint that value in right like that, right like that. Okay. Oops. Hold on, I made a mistake there, but that's okay. Deselect. I accidentally painted over this. I wasn't looking. That's easy to do. Brush. So I'm doing all this right now on one layer. Okay, so look, I made that little adjustment. Where does that little crack point me to? Right down to that character. Okay. I don't want it too tight though. I don't want to create too much of what I call a tangency where it doesn't feel correct. Okay. Get that out, get that little piece there, deselect, okay? There, that's cool, I like that. I have that little mountain range that I carved in there. Now I could come in there and I could accentuate just a little bit more of those highlights that I was doing over here. So I could come over here, again, I have that silhouette of the character, right? So what if I just come in here and I lightly select a little bit around him and I sort of do this mountain thingy? Like imagine these are like little areas in the mountain that are going to have highlights on them. Like this, and try to go around him the best that I can so I don't paint over him. Okay, let me zoom in there real quick. Oops. There, let me get out. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I want to select some of these other mountains right here. So let's go back to lasso. I'm going to select this front facade like right up in here. Maybe there's a little area here. Okay, and then here I might want that to fade off a little bit. Oops. Okay, that's pretty cool. Watch, I'm going to hit Control H, and now the same thing. I'm going to take my brush and imagine I have light coming left or right. So I'm going to drop my brush down about 20% and just go along part of the base of this character right here and see what starts to pull out. So do you see those little details right there? That's not too much, but there's enough in there now to pull out the facade changes of what's happening in the background. Okay, it's indicating to me like, hey, there's light hitting these little facade planes of this mountain right here, and when I see that light, it gets that to sort of pop a little bit. I've even forgot where my selection is right now. So I'm not even looking at the ants. I'm just coming in here trying to figure out what's going to make the best composition by me painting over what I had in there. And there we go. That's all I need to do. In fact, I can leave it at that, just very lightly. I don't want it, if it's too intense, what's going to happen? I'll drown out the whole piece, because right now I have the piece with all the highlights, especially right in here, here, and by the guy. And I want to leave that. In fact, let's say I want to push that guy just a little bit more. I might come in here and select this area right in here to get just a nice, ever so sweet little highlight right there. Let's go to brush, Control H, hide my ants, and then just come in here and just really sort of push that up right there. Do you see that? Okay. So it's obvious now when I scale out of there, you know where the eye's supposed to look. And because we dressed it like we just mentioned with detail. We dressed it with scale. Okay. Now there's still some other things that I would adjust in this piece. Okay. I mean, look at this. I have all these other shapes around here that could use just a little bit of TLC, a little bit of change of form. That's like a cookie cutter shape right there. I mean, I could blend something in there if I like. And let me see if I can do this really quick. Let me hit wand. Let me select like that little piece right there. Okay. What I was going to do is see if I could just take a gradient and go from dark to light, a little bit darker on here. All right. And then if I put a layer above that, let's go back up here. Let's put it under fill stuff here. So I'm going to go to G right now, and the stroke of gradient sort of going up. And then just curious, if I deselect, I'm on a separate layer, right? And if I come down and drop that down, putting that little gradient on there, does that do anything to help the form a little bit? It does a little bit, but I just like that change. Let me darken it a little bit more though. Don't know if you notice that difference there. It just adds a little bit of dark to light moving across there. That's what I like about using some of those gradient tools. There we go. Deselect, okay. I still want to come in here and just lightly just indicate like, hey, look, I'm not just a paper cut it. I may have a little bit of a highlight there. Just something here. Just simple. Like that, okay. Hit hide. Go in, take my brush. Let's go to sort of a real light value here. And I'm just going to lightly come across it. See that? Uh-oh. It's getting the pinwheel of death there. Drop down to like 10% here. And just sort of maybe hit a little bit on that edge here. See what that? See how I'm pulling up this little corner right here out of that, and then just slightly coming down. That's it. That's all I need. And look at how much that changes that form right there. Hopefully that comes out. I know it's a little bit lighter on the monitors, and I apologize for that. It's either lighter or darker, but I'm just putting little bits of highlight just right up on here. If you look at my ants, see my ants there? Okay. And problem is I'm on a layer that's so light right now. The layer's at 9%. It's really hard. So I'm just going to have the same selection, go to another layer above. Now I can drop my pen down to like 5%. And then you'll really start to see I can get some of those little highlights to pop in just one or two places. Like that. That's it. Boom. See, now I'm getting a lot more detail, a lot more transitions starting to happen in there. Okay. The other little thing that I wanted to adjust in this particular piece is that I feel like in there was the foreground separation of what was happening in here wasn't quite dark enough for me. So I want to come over here and I'm just going to select some little bit more of an area that could be foreground for me, like this. And I'm just going to darken that. So let me take that value there and go a little bit darker. Okay. There we go. I want a free float, but there we go, like that. Whoa, that was a lot of lag. That scares me a little bit. Let me get out of that free float mode. I don't want to lock up the recorder. I just wanted that value, but I wanted a little bit darker. And I'm not quite getting what I want. That's still a little, I'll adjust it in a minute. Let me just throw this down here real quick. Come on, Photoshop. Don't lag. Don't quit. There we go. Okay. And now let me go to Control H. I want to adjust that. That's still a little too dark for me. Just like that. You see that? Just creates that nice transition that, hey, there's something here in the foreground. Okay. Let me see if I come back in. I want to adjust Eddie's canvas here, because that's a cactus. That's a really great canvas, and I could use. I can't talk. Cactus. That's a great cactus, and I could use that to my advantage right now. Okay. Hold on. Deselect. Let me select that cactus. I'm going to go to light. Okay. And I'm going to lighten that guy down a little bit. See, one of the problems is when I go to lighten them, see what it's doing? It's still picking up the photo or whatever you grabbed it from. Right? See that? And there's still some white in there, and it's messing with it a little bit. So what I like to do is this. If I go to levels, and then if I completely suck out all the value and make them either pure white or black, like that. So I just slid that all the way across there like that. Now I can go back to levels and I can make them pure black. Okay, see that? And now there shouldn't be any more gradient halftones in there. It should just be me controlling. See how I did that? I sucked out all the life out of it, right? There. So I'm going to make that a little bit more grayer so it's not as... And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. Bring that over here to my foreground. Put that up here on fill stuff. Okay. Go to darken them up a lot more. Hold on a minute. And now I'm going to adjust the size. Boom. And if I have that like here in the foreground somewhere, popping up like that, okay, it really does a lot for the scale, because now this huge sort of like canvas, I can't talk, cactus, I'm going to do it for the whole day, because that's just the way my mind works. Canvas, cactus. Okay, but now I want to grab that other shape that you had. I really like that one, and I want to move that. So let me see if I can, let me turn this one off real quick. These are just little details that help me with the scale, and scale is really important right now. What was this little guy under here? Was that, yeah, it was that, and there's something else with it. Let's see if we can find out what's with it. It's on that layer, and it's not there. Not there. Not there. Aha! Got him. So 5, and then there we go. Let's merge these together. I'm going to bring these down a little bit more over here. Why? So now when I turn on that cactus, it's a little bit more supportive. Okay. I might scale them down just a teeny bit, but I'm going to do that thing again because there's still white in there on the levels. Where I'm going to suck out all the white, make it one. The only downside when I do that, sometimes it enriches part of the shape, but that's okay. It changed a little bit. It added the white lines. Once I sucked out the value, it increased that overall shape. And I didn't want it to increase that much, but that's okay. I'm going to go to levels right now, and then let's lighten them up. Get them to be much more in the midground, sort of like that. Okay. And then what I can do is where I put this new cactus here, I can add to this cactus really quickly, right? Because I don't want it to look just like the other cactus. Here it is. Wait a minute. What did Phil do with it? Nope. Nope. There it is. It's right there in front of me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy. I'm going to put another arm on this guy to make him look a little different. And then I might come over here and put another little arm like that. And then I might do something like this down below. Okay, so I could bring them right in the foreground. Let's go to brush, 100%. There, I'm going to fill those shapes in like that. Okay, deselect. So look at the depth change that happened there. By me creating that canvas, that cactus over in the front and moving it over, I'm going to keep saying it because now it's on my mind, right? It's going to drive me nuts. By pulling that in the foreground and then darkening a little bit of what was here, okay? Now I really have a lot more transition that's starting to happen inside the piece, okay? And I can still come in and put little bits of detail, little facade changes as well. I mean, it's actually a really fun piece to do this on. I might select areas here. I might put just a couple little darks in here that tie this together somehow, like that. Maybe in here I have Okay. There we go. So I'm going to hit H, brush, a bit darker, just go to like 20. See, ever so lightly, do you see that change happening there? Just going across with my brush right now over that selection. I do the same thing here. Just going to darken a little bit of that edge. Just gets that form to come out a little bit more. Okay? There. So don't go too far. That way I'm at 36 minutes now. I can stop the demo. Let me add up everything I placed in there, then let's just look at the difference. Okay? So that's where we were. Not a bad place. That's a really strong foundation right there. But now by coming in, adding, the scale in there, adding some transition of form. Okay, so again, remember we talked about that cube. I'm not going to do it again, but I'll mention it again, where we talked about the cube, and I selected one side, I made it lighter, and then I selected the back side, made it darker. So then we had 3 variants of the same local color with more white or black in it, right? Tints and shades. Okay, so I just did the same thing here. Just by selecting a little bit on the outside right here, I've darkened it, and I'm turning the form a little bit more. I really turned the form in here. I still might come in here. I'm still a little iffy. What I would do is probably walk away. This light that I had coming across here, I might, actually I want that to wrap over the form here. So I'm going to wrap it over the rocks like this. Make it look like it's just a shadow casting. That's what light does, right? Heck, maybe it comes up there and then a little bit comes up around this plant like so. In fact, part of me wants to come in here and just select little areas of highlights. And then I can come back with my brush and do those all as sort of secondary. And they don't have to be massive here. Why? This is a second area of detail, right? This is not a primary area of detail. They're going to be very light little transitions. Even on the cactus, I could come in here and do this and put just a couple little highlights on here. That'll pop it. Get it to transition out, okay? There we go, like that. So even in here too, let's just treat this whole area, get some of this working. Okay, now I'm going to hit Control H. I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to go down to like 0.5%, so I'm really light. That way I'm just going to come across a couple spots here to see how it's pulling out that cactus a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't want to hit it any more than that. I just want a little bit of light on that cactus to turn the form. A little bit down here, maybe on the rocks. That's it. I don't need anything more than that. Just really simple. Okay. I put some, and take the brush and just stroke it across right here. And look at how it pulled out that plane. Do you see that? Watch. I'll do it again. Okay. Everyone watch. Magic. Ready? It's a magic brush. Okay. But just doing that little bit, you see what it did? It gets this area to pop a little bit more. So if I'm going to come back here now, and where I'm going to continue that light going from here, I'm just going to lightly gradate it and make it delineate, because that's what light does. It wraps over planes and areas, and light delineates. Shadows don't always stay the same values they cast. The light does the exact same thing. It hits a surface, depending upon the surface texture, the intensity of the light, and the direction of the light, and then it sort of delineates and wraps over. So I really like this look I'm getting right in here, where it's sort of coming across, going up the hill, and then it's delineating, and it's very light. I also had some selections up here on the rocks in the back. Let's see if I can hit some of that and get that to pop out. Here, let's hit Control H. Now, there it's not popping out as much there, and part of that's because the value is so much lighter. So I have to hit this. I might need to go up to like 20%. There we go. It's ever so lightly. Look at that. Get that little gradient in there. Very nice. Okay, where else did I put? Okay, that's good for right now. I have a little bit here. What you don't want to do is this. What happens if I do this, guys? What's wrong with that? Where's the big... Exactly. Too much contrast. And now it pulls me from the whole center focus of my piece. Okay? I want to keep that light. that cactus is not my main read. It's a supporting element. My main read is keeping the eye focused on this guy here and having everything else become supportive of it. So in part of the demo I was going to do today on my piece, but I just did it on a student's piece, I was going to talk about using gradients. And this is a great way to use gradients, is you can just select an area and you can take your brush and lightly paint in the gradient, or you can stroke a gradient by using the gradient tool and then manipulate that layer and get to blend in. Okay. So now what's cool when I look at that canvas, okay, I can't see in canvas. When I look at that cactus, and I look over to the left side, that cactus feels sort of bare now. Now part of me wants to come over there and just put a little bit of what might be a coarse shadow on that guy. Just select a little bit of this in here. Okay. Like that. Hit Control H. I'm going to come in with my brush. I'll select the black. I'll go to about 10%. And just sort of lightly come in here and just put a little bit of a darker shadow on him. That's it. Nothing more than that. It's just to turn his form a little bit. Okay? So let me zoom out here. And when we take a look at everything that we have, okay, I think that's a good jump, because now when we turn this piece on, we know exactly where the eye should focus. We haven't changed that much of the environment. You know, I am second guessing. Part of me was, I'm creating tension by having a broken piece right here. Your eye fills that in. So part of me wants to come in here and cut this half off. But that's okay for right now. We took it from, you know, a good level and then got us to this point here. And just even notice the difference too, how this being the same gray here and then going all the way in terms of what we call the Z depth, right? X is horizontal, Y is vertical, Z is the transition inside the perspective plane. So going from here all the way into here, it's the same value. That sort of kills us right there. It flattens part of the piece. By having a dark value here, repetition of shape, going from a cactus in the foreground, going one a little bit smaller, and even if I were to put a little bit another one in the back here, a little bit smaller. Here, let's do that. Let's just take that cactus that we have, all right? Let's duplicate that. Bring it back in here. Uh-oh. That's weird. Hold on a minute. I have it all. Select all of the move. Transform. Get it right about in there. Okay, H, let's go to levels. Let's get that guy a lot lighter. There we go. The other thing I'd want to adjust is that tree that's in the back there too. I'd want to get him a lot lighter. But now I have, look at just the transition to shape, having scale. I'm going to have a cactus in the foreground, one in the midground, and one in the very background. Okay, that does a lot to affect the piece. Let's make him skinny. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to end this demo, and I'll render it out and get it posted up. Any questions before I wrap it up? Okay, cool. Little details, okay? Turn the form. If I mentioned that, I already went around the room and talked to a couple students. I looked at their piece, and I'm not seeing the form turning. Form turns with indication of direction of light hitting it, okay? Little areas of detail, little gradients on there. I haven't even got into, if I wanted to, I could get into texturing a little bit, but what's cool about the selection and painting over it is those gradients act like little bits of texture. They help the rock formation sort of come alive, and they help the piece sort of pop. Okay? All right. See you guys soon.